Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away, but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You wonder who the watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. The Watcher.
Hi, I'm Kat, and of course, today I have for you a true crime case and also a word in Romanian. So, the word in Romanian for today is accident. 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 Well done, guys, you just said accident. They are very similar. Located around 45 minutes from New York City in Union County, New Jersey, the town of Westfield is a quiet suburb where the biggest gossip was the collapse of a local Trader Joe's roof. Nothing really ever happened there. The local residents saw Westfield as the real-life Mayberry, the made-up town used in the Andy Griffith Show. In 2014, Westfield was one of the top 30 safest communities in America. It has been one of the state's highest income communities. Westfield is a classic town for modern families, with Victorian and Colonial style homes which reflect the historical character, and tree-lined streets within a peaceful landscape with beautiful parks and golf courses and an endless variety of recreational facilities for children and adults alike, giving the residents the attractions of fine suburban living with an easy route to metropolitan New York. I mean, it sounds just like a perfect town, right? Maria and Derek Brothers were a fairly average suburban family. Maria had grown up in Westfield, just a few blocks away from 657 Boulevard, a house which the couple would later decide to buy. Derek had grown up in Maine in a working class family, but from his humble beginnings he worked his way up to a position as a senior vice president at a Manhattan insurance company. So the couple decided it was time to look for a house so they can settle down in a safe area with the children, but also at the same time to have easy access to the big cities. So in June 2014, after Derek celebrated his 40th birthday, him and Maria closed the deal on the 6-bedroom house at 657 Boulevard. After all, Maria had grown up in Westfield, so she knew the town, the community, and above all, she knew that it was safe. For them, buying the Dutch colonial home was fulfilling a lifelong dream, and the expansive new house with 4 bathrooms and more than 3,800 square feet was just blocks away from Maria's childhood home. They had fallen in love with the house, and the couple's 3 children had already begun debating which fireplace Santa Claus would use at Christmas. After they had finalized the purchase of the house, they started doing renovations to get the house ready to move in with their 3 children aged 5, 8 and 10 years old. They had bought the house from the Woods family who lived there before them, but as they were preparing to settle into the $1.3 million house with their children, they received a disturbing letter in the mail. Signed only The Watcher, the letter had no return address, but whoever wrote it seemed to have been watching the couple carefully. Starting off warmly, the letter began.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood.
But quickly, the letter took a sinister turn as the writer went on.
How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within?
The author continued by saying that the house had been the subject of his family for decades, and the author also said that he had been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming.
I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy.
Bad move. Now, we keep hearing this, at least me, I keep hearing this like, the second coming. The second coming in Christianity is the future return of Christ in glory, when it's understood that he will set up his kingdom, judge his enemies, and reward the faithful, living and dead. I don't know if that's what the Watcher mentioned in his letter, if he was something religious. Even more disturbing, the Watcher mentioned the couple's 3 children and asked if there were more on the way.
Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me.
Even though Westfield is safe and it seems like the perfect suburb, it has been the scene of other horrors in the past. In 1970, a man named John List murdered his wife, mother and 3 children in their Westfield home. But that horrifying crime had since become a distant memory, and most people in Westfield felt secure in their community. Moving forward to 2014, in the weeks that followed, these strange messages from the Watcher grew more and more threatening. The first letter arrived at 657 Boulevard on a June evening. Derek had been painting a few walls at their new home, and after finishing up, he checked the mail, where he found a white card-sized envelope addressed in thick handwriting to the new owner. The letter was typed and it started off with very nice words of welcome, but it soon turned into weird and threatening sentences that described how the Watcher watched the house for decades. The Watcher claimed that their father and grandfather had also watched the house at 657 Boulevard, which was built in 1905.
Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I asked the woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listen.
The letter even asked the children's names, which I think is really creepy and terrifying at the same time.
Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me.
There was no return address on the envelope, and the author teased the homeowners that they could be a neighbor or simply just a passerby. Most hauntingly of all, the note's author revealed that they had already begun watching the family, identifying various personal details such as their Honda minivan, as well as the fact that they had hired builders to renovate the home. I think that by this point, anyone would be pooping their pants. Just think about it. The family just bought a $1.3 million home in one of the safest cities in America, top 30, moving away from the unsafety of bigger cities, right? They found their dream home where they would be able to raise their children without any risks whatsoever. I mean, at this point, anyone would go mental. Alone in the house after 10 p.m., Derek was just terrified. He was freaking out. After running around the house to turn off all the lights, he called Westfield Police Department, but they were not able to do much. An officer who came to the house read the letter and said, "What the F is this?" He asked if Derek had any enemies, and the police recommended moving any construction equipment outside of the house, just in case the Watcher would decide to throw the equipment through one of the home's windows in an attempt to scare them. The police also advised Derek not to say anything to the other neighbors just yet, as they were now all suspects. Maria and Derek also decided to contact the Woods family, who sold them the house, to find out if they received any kind of similar letters as well. Andrea Woods did say that she received a strange letter signed The Watcher, but she dismissed it as harmless and just threw it away. She also said that she and her husband had lived in this house for 23 years and only heard from the watcher once. But Derek and Maria couldn't shake their fear that they were being watched. The second letter from the watcher arrived 2 weeks after the first. Maria stopped by the house and discovered the letter. This time, however, it was addressed to the Broadeses by name, and the author listed their 3 children by birth order and nicknames as well. They did, however, misspell the couple as Mr. and Mrs. Broaddus. It seemed that the watcher was close enough to overhear their conversations. The watcher also mentioned an easel that one of their daughters set up on a porch, which was only visible from the side or the rear of the house, asking,
"Is she the artist in the family?"
This second letter is even more concerning than the first. Not only did the watcher find out the name of the new family, but now they know that they have children, the ages and date of birth for each child, even their hobbies. And clearly the watcher mentions something which only someone watching the house would know. The second letter made more vague references to something hidden in the walls of the house, and even thanked the family for bringing more young blood. He went on.
"It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream."
Terrified by this point of all these letters, Derek and Maria stopped bringing their keys to the house and already began to consider selling off their dream home. After getting the second letter, Derek and Maria really began to panic. They became edgy around all of their new neighbors, who they saw as potential stalkers. Obviously, at this point, to them, all of the neighbors seemed suspicious. So Maria and Derek decided to just put their renovations on hold, and they stopped taking the children to the new house. A few weeks later, a third letter arrived.
"Where have you gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you."
Deeply concerned by these letters, Maria and Derek are reaching out to Westfield police yet again. An investigation was opened, and it was Detective Leonard Lugo who would lead this investigation. For a while, the detectives suspected a next-door neighbor, Michael Langford, who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. So, as part of the investigation, the detective decided to get the letters DNA tested to see if they could come up with something, anything really. However, DNA found on one of the envelopes indicated that a woman sealed them with her saliva, and the sample didn't match anyone in the Langford home, the next-door neighbors. Also, Michael Langford denied any involvement, and his family completely backed him up, saying that there was no way he would write such threatening notes. Detectives who investigated the case generally agreed that the suspect lived near the residence of the Broaddus family. DNA samples obtained from several suspects in the case were not a match. Furthermore, a few people who were reported as suspects passed away in the past few years. Desperate for any kind of answers, Derek and Maria hired a variety of experts to investigate. Derek even reached out to the real-life FBI agent who inspired the character of Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs. Derek had been with the FBI agent on a school board of trustees, so they knew each other. The couple also hired former FBI agent Robert Lenihan to do a threat assessment on the letters. His analysis showed that the writer was likely an older person based on vocabulary and their habit of double spacing after a period. Robert concluded that the letter author didn't appear overly threatening, but their obviously erratic thoughts could suggest someone who was unpredictable. The couple also hired the security firm Kroll to look for handwriting matches to the envelopes, but nothing came of it. Still determined to get some answers, they hired a forensic linguist and former member of the band Shanana, Robert Leonard, to search local forums for language patterns that resemble the mysterious Watcher's letters. But all of these efforts came to just nothing. Despite having an incredible investigative team, Derek and Maria had absolutely no answers. Maria would later say that at the end of the day, it came down to what were they willing to risk, and they were just not ready to put their kids in harm's way. So they never moved into 657 Boulevard. Maria and Derek decided to just back out of the move altogether. They were really unsettled by these letters and they wanted to make sure they keep their children safe, so they decided against the move. Finally, 6 months after the first letter arrived, Derek and Maria put the house on the market, asking for a bit more than they had paid, as they assumed that the renovations would, raise the value of the house, which would make sense. But unfortunately, after they disclosed the really strange letters to potential buyers, all offers fell through. Later, in 2015, Maria and Derek filed a suit against the Woods family for not disclosing to them the letter that they received from the watcher before the sale. But in 2017, a New Jersey judge threw out the suit, saying it could set an unreasonable precedent for what sellers would have to disclose. Meanwhile, some people in the community began to wonder if Maria and Derek weren't sending these letters to themselves in order to get out of a house that they just couldn't afford. As one resident told Gothamist, quote, "How can a couple with a $300,000 house in Scotch Plains and a $175,000 mortgage 10 years ago have $1.1 million mortgage?" End of quote. But you know what? I kind of tend to disagree with this resident. I mean, not only did Derek move up in the insurance company he worked at, what would be the point for them to do it to themselves? The letters devalued the house significantly, which meant that they would be losing money. So I don't know, I just don't find it plausible. And also, how did this resident know about their finances? The exact figures even. That's another strange thing. In 2016, Maria and Derek tried to have the house torn down and redevelop the lot, but their plans weren't approved. Maria and Derek, at one point, they rented the house out, and then another letter arrived in 2017 warning of various tragedies which could take place, such as car accidents, fires, or the sudden death of a loved one, threatening to take revenge on them if they harmed the house.
Maybe a car accident. Maybe a fire. Maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away, but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You wonder who the watcher is. Turn around, idiots.
After being years on the market, the Watcher house finally sold in 2019, with Derek and Maria taking a loss of $440,000. And as for the theories that Maria and Derek faked the Watcher, Derek denies them. As he told the Cut, quote, "This person attacked my family, and where I'm from, if you do that, you get your ass beat." End quote. There is a silver lining though for the family. According to Deadline, Netflix bought the rights to this creepy story in 2019, so maybe they did manage to kind of recover the losses on selling the house, or maybe some of the losses. And as you probably know by now, The Watcher is streaming on Netflix. So, who was this Westfield Watcher? Derek Brodus believes that an insane and dangerous neighbor might have sent these letters. "There is a mentally unhinged lunatic in that neighborhood," he told The Sun online. Westfield is one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the US, and competition for houses is fierce. This led the Broduses to initially suspect that the Watcher was perhaps a disgruntled prospective buyer who had lost out on 657 Boulevard. Another more obvious theory was that he was a neighbor. The letters had been processed at a nearby distribution center, meaning they had been sent locally, and the first was postmarked June the 4th before the sale was made public. One suspect was their neighbor Michael Langford. He was in his 60s but still lived with his elderly mother and several of his siblings in their house. Another neighbor described the family as odd and compared Michael to the reclusive figure of Boo Radley from Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. His brother said that Michael had been diagnosed with schizophrenia as a young man, and he was known to do strange things such as walk through neighbors' back gardens or peek through the windows of homes being renovated. The family also had a unique vantage point with which to view the house. Derek and Maria employed a private investigator and two former FBI agents, all of whom staked out the house and performed background checks on the Langfords. However, the family always denied involvement and no direct evidence could be found, so Michael was ultimately cleared. He died in 2020 and his family remain livid to this day. Another theory included a prankster or estate agent or even someone who had been living behind the walls or in a space in the home for years, although there is again no evidence that there was anyone living behind the walls or that there was any space in the home. Contacted by the Sun online, Derek described the events at 657 Boulevard as a traumatic experience and said that his family was trying to move on. However, he warned that he believes the author of the letters hasn't gone away. There is another theory about a local teacher and author called Robert Kaplow. He taught English at Summit High School, a school near the Westfield area. He retired the same summer that the Broadeses received their first 2014 letter. One of Robert's pieces he is known for is Me and Orson Welles, which is filled with references to the Westfield area where the Watcher case happened. According to the cut, over the years, Robert told a story to his students that struck many of them as curious. The story was about a particular house in Westfield and his obsession with it. A former student told the cut that Robert had the idea to start writing letters to the house, not the occupants, but to the house itself. Another student said that Robert once told them he sent more than 50 letters to the house in question. Robert always denied the claims he has anything to do with the Watcher case. Robert's brother Richard worked as an attorney in Westfield and represented the Woods family, the former residents of 657 Boulevard, when the Broadeses sued them for not disclosing they received a letter from the Watcher as well. Robert, however, shut down the theory, telling the cut that there is nothing there, adding that the house he wrote admiring, not threatening letters to was a different property entirely. In a 2022 update, according to the cut, the new owners of 657 Boulevard have not received any letters from the Watcher. They did receive a note from the Broadeses which said, quote, "We wish you nothing but the peace and quiet that we once dreamed of in this house." End of quote. The Broadeses haven't received any letters in their new home, which is also in the same area. After the cut's original article on the Watcher case, the Union County Prosecutor's Office asked neighbors to submit saliva samples to compare against DNA on one of the Watcher's envelopes. However, two people declined to be swabbed, at least one of whom was a close neighbor of 657 Boulevard and someone the police had considered as a suspect. And to this day, the Watcher case remains unsolved. My own theory is that it was actually the whole community together, the neighborhood, and my husband tends to have the same opinion. And why am I saying this? Well, the investigation revealed that it was potentially someone older, judging by the way the letters were written, a potential neighbor. Also, a woman's DNA was found on the envelope, so I'm thinking it was kind of a group effort. Perhaps they didn't want outsiders to live in that house. Maybe they were still trying to come to terms with the murder of the family in that house, and maybe they believed that the house belonged to the family. Or it could also be that they just didn't want the architecture of the house to be disturbed. So I am thinking it could have been an elderly person or elderly people who wanted things just the way they were, who hated modernizing a community, who are trying to preserve the authenticity of a building and maybe even the neighborhood. As far as we know, the family who lived there before Derek and Maria, they lived there for over 20 years and they only received one letter, and there is no mention of any letters from previous owners. So yeah, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that it could have been the closer community, the closer neighbors who acted together as a group just in an attempt to scare off any potential new owners into moving into the house for various reasons. But the main reason why I think it was the house itself is not disturbed by any kind of renovations or any structural changes or design changes. So I'm saying elderly people, because usually elderly people, they appreciate and they value the way old things are rather than modernized changes. So yeah, this is all I have for you for today's video. Like I said, if you do want to watch the Netflix series based on this true story, you can go on Netflix and you'll see there is called The Watcher. And yeah, I am looking forward to hearing your own theories as to who do you think the Watcher is. And do you think that the Watcher is still alive today? And do you think that the Watcher will still carry on? Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!